coming. Tonight we're going to be discussing energy, tax reform, education, healthcare, the government's role in the life of the individual, and Iran. And the first issue we're going to talk about is energy, so please welcome Aaron Rose and Jeffrey Hurd. Okay guys, during this debate there's going to be no applause, no booing, and nothing of that sort. Alright, so. Okay. Alright. Energy is a very pressing issue in our current politics. What is your view, Mr. President, on energy?
I believe we need to move forward in our energy future with an all-of-the-above approach. We have, in the United States as natural resources, oil, coal, and natural gas. We have, at this time, we are producing more oil than any time in the past 16 years, and more natural gas than any time in the last decades. The United States is set to become the world's second largest producer of oil, second only to Saudi Arabia, within the next few years. But we also need to look to the future. We can't keep relying on these outdated energy sources. We have to look into clean coal, wind, solar, and biofuels as we move into the future and away from fossil fuels and other non-renewable resources. My administration has doubled down on the efficiency standards. Cars that you'll purchase within the next decades can go twice as far on the same amount of fuel. And light bulbs also are going to be more efficient, using less energy to produce the same brightness. We're doing this while trying to maintain minimal environmental impact. We halted drilling in the Gulf of Mexico after the Deepwater Horizon explosion and subsequent massive oil spill because we want to improve the valves on the pumps and improve the safety there. That spill cost billions of dollars to the tourism, fishing industries, and various other industries that could have been avoided with more regulation on the production of oil in the offshore. We also have to look into the permit regulations. Right now we're working to shorten the lease periods for drilling on government lands. We believe that if we do so, we'll push the oil companies forward in producing oil so that we will become energy independent sooner. We believe, though, that we cannot do this by giving over all the power to the oil companies as Governor Romney would like. We can do this centralized in the government, providing good, noticeable advances and to provide for a future for our children and grandchildren which will be as adequate as we are today.
Thank you, President Obama. Now we're going to turn it over to Governor Romney. What do you have to say?
My administration will make North America energy independent by the year 2020. Doing this will create 3 million jobs, increase GDP by $500 billion, and bring $1 trillion in revenue to the federal government. To do this, we will focus on the resources America has. My administration will approve the Keystone XL pipeline from Canada. President Obama rejected this pipeline, and now Canada is sending their oil to China. We want that oil here in America, so we no longer have to import oil from volatile Middle East regions. Also, I will simplify the permitting process so only states have to give permits for new oil and gas drilling platforms. Currently, it takes 170 days to get a permit, and under the Obama administration, permit granting is down 60%. On federal lands, 40% less oil is being produced now than when he entered office, and all the oil and gas is there. My administration will let the states decide who gets permits so that we can increase drilling and produce more gas and oil. Also, I will allow energy companies to compete in the free market. The president of Washington had been picking winners and losers. They gave wind energy a huge government grant, but since then, wind energy sector has lost 10,000 jobs because it is not viable yet. He picked Solyndra, gave them $500 million. They went bankrupt. The government lost all their money. under my administration, the federal government will let every energy source compete on a fair and equal market so that the best energy systems and the most profitable will thrive. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next issue is economic reform. Economic reform is a pressing issue today. What is your view, Governor Romney, on economic reform?
I believe that we need to focus on creating jobs in the private sector because that will in turn create growth in our economy. So I've developed a 5-point plan that will create 12 million new jobs in the next 4 years and will help rising take-home pay. First off, we need to make America energy independent by 2020. Creating jobs in the energy industry and helping other industries become more profitable with cheap energy. Second, we need to level the playing field of international trade, making China trade fairly and opening new markets throughout the world. Third, we need better education for Americans through better public schooling and access to higher education and retraining. Fourth, we need to cut the deficit, reducing the size of government and controlling the national debt crisis. We want businesses to want to open here and to stay here. Fifth, we need to champion small businesses, lowering the tax rate on all Americans and cutting back on regulation.
All right, Mr. President.
See, you should know, folks, for the last several months, Governor Romney has been talking about a 5-point plan. But in reality, the governor has a 1-point plan to make sure that folks at the top play by a different set of rules than folks at the bottom. See, the governor is more concerned with the economic impact of Sesame Street than he is with the deregulation of Wall Street. My plan has been simple. Education, we need to educate our youth so that they're confident enough to move into the jobs of the 21st century. We need to offer tax cuts to small businesses that are domestic, that employ workers in this nation. We need to become energy dependent. Under my administration, domestic oil production has risen dramatically. You know, the governor talks about there are 23 million Americans out of work. There are 46 million Americans on food stamps. When I took office, these numbers were much higher. I was left the heir of a horrific debt by my predecessor, George W. Bush. And Governor Romney now asks the American people to return to the same policies and failed at institutions that got us here in the first place. What we need to focus on is not on allowing the big businesses and Wall Street to write their own rules. We need to focus on making sure that we have a prosperous middle class, that we need to fund education. I have a plan to give $2 billion to community and state universities so that our citizens are well educated enough to move into the jobs that exist now. See, I tell you folks, the past 4 years has certainly been bumpy. They haven't been easy, but this nation has moved so far. We can't afford to turn back to the policies of George W. Bush and these failed institutions when we have achieved the change that you all voted for in 2008. I thank the governor for his remarks. I thank the Wyoming Yeshiva High School for hosting us. God bless America.
Governor Romney.
I think we need to look at what Obama has, or shall we say, hasn't done in the past 4 years. Unemployment has never reached 5%. Instead, it stayed at 8% for 44 months and now stands at 7.9%. 5 million jobs were created, but 5 were lost before 5 were ever created. So there was no net gain. 23 million people are still out of work. More people are in poverty since before Obama took office. 1 in 6 people rely on food stamps. Obama came into his presidency in the same conditions that Reagan came into his. And we face the same recession that was faced. I will take the same steps that Reagan took to put us back on track.
Thank you. The next issue is health care. Healthcare is another issue of concern. President Obama, what steps have you been taking towards fixing the healthcare issue?
Thank you, Megan, and thank you, Weinbaum, for hosting us. Look, when I came into office in 2008, there were 49 million Americans without health insurance. That meant 49 million people who had to fear that becoming sick would cost them their livelihood. That meant that Zoe Lynn, a 1-year-old child, had to fear that she would not get health coverage after being diagnosed with a heart issue because her health insurance set a lifetime limit on the amount of care she could get. That meant that 49 million Americans cannot receive preventative care necessary to catch the onset of diabetes and other illnesses. This broken healthcare system, which expended 18% of our GDP and was the greatest driver of our national debt, was simply immoral for us to continue. So what did? We passed what was the greatest private insurance expansion in our history. We allowed for those with insurance to keep it, but stopped insurance companies from raising their premiums and applying lifetime limits. We also allowed young folk like yourself to stay on your parents' plans until you're 26 years old. For those without insurance, we offer them an array of quality insurance plans by 2014. No one will be denied coverage because of pre-existing conditions. Women will not face higher premiums, and you will not be billed into bankruptcy. Now, I've spent a lot of time trying to get this health care passed, and I've gained a few gray hairs by doing it. But in the end, our country is better off for it. Although it may not have been politically correct, it was the right thing for our nation. And together with the Affordable Care Act, we progressed towards a more perfect nation.
All right, Governor Romney.
President Obama, I thank you for your presentation, but I do not thank you for Obamacare. Ladies and gentlemen, what Obamacare is extreme governmental regulation of our healthcare system in virtually every aspect. What President Obama has done with our healthcare system in order to pay for Obamacare, he has taxed the middle class over $500 billion, and he took another $500 billion from Medicare, which is a vital part of our healthcare system. We don't need to rely on Obamacare. What we need to rely on is the principles that founded our nation. We need to rely on capitalism. So how can we infuse capitalism with our healthcare system? We need to promote free market and fair competition, and we need to empower consumer choice. How can we do that? Well, let's say that there are 7 insurance companies standing in front of me and I have to choose one. If all 7 want me to pick them, they're going to give me lower rates and better quality so that I'll pick that one out of the other instead of the other 6. We need to make sure that our insurance companies are fighting amongst each other so that we can have the best care for ourselves. How can we do this? For one, we need to allow consumers to purchase insurance from across state lines. That means if I'm in New Jersey, but I think that the best care is here in Florida, I should be able to purchase insurance in Florida. We also need to stop insurance companies from discriminating against people with pre-existing conditions. If there's a father with 4 children at home and he has cancer and he can't get insurance because the insurance companies won't give him the money because they know that he's sick, that's not fair and that's not American. We need to change that. One other thing that we need to do is make sure that we have a better overall system for our healthcare, and that would include allowing individuals and groups to form purchasing pools. I believe that these tenets, along with many other tenets of my plan, will make for a better system of healthcare in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Romney, but I'd just like to make one final point before we're over. This plan that you say, which is not capitalistic and against America, was in fact written by you in Massachusetts. It was called by you a model for the nation, and in Massachusetts it's working perfectly. Millions of Americans are receiving health insurance in Massachusetts and receiving great care because of it, and at low cost. So your calls for repeal, I do not see what is behind them. Thank you.
Thank you.